Chapter 8. Conviction. Ray loved the Lord, and he knew that God had called him to write for him. When he wasn't on the road, buying and selling, he was attending church, and being the best husband and father that anyone would want. He resisted the temptation of drinking alcohol when he was in town. His daughters had no knowledge of it at all. He was their hero. After church, he would take them all to the King Cone for ice cream cones. The girls would get the big 10-cent cones, and he'd buy the nickel cone for their little dog, Twinkle. Sometimes he'd load up all the neighborhood kids in the back of his pickup, and take them all for ice cream too. One time, Jenny and Becky went to Girl Scout camp, which was about 50 miles from home. There were about 200 Girl Scouts there, from all over the state. The campout lasted for a week, which was too long in Ray's mind. On the fourth night, there was a huge bonfire and weenie roast. All the scouts were having a great time around the fire, singing the camp songs, when one little girl yelled, "Hey! There's Mr. Lindsey." Sure enough, Ray and Catherine pulled up in their pickup truck, loaded down with watermelons, for the entire camp. The family went on lots of vacations together. They often went to Mississippi, to visit Catherine's sister and family. The cousins loved being together, and they often came to Arkansas as well. One summer, while driving to Mississippi, they stopped at a roadside park for a picnic lunch, which Catherine had brought along. When they finished eating, they hit the road once more. They had gone about 50 miles. When Becky said, "Where's Twinkle?" Everyone looked around frantically for the dog. Sandy cried, "We left her at the park." By now, all the girls were crying. They had been gone for over an hour. Ray just turned the car around and said, "Hush now, we will go back and get her." Catherine silently fretted, as the girls cried, all the way back to the park. Their tears turned to laughter when they saw Twinkle patiently waiting, right by the picnic table. Twinkle wiggled happily, as the girls all jumped out of the car, to hug her. Catherine cried happy tears, and Ray sighed in relief. The rest of the trip was fun for everyone, as they sang songs, all the way to Mississippi. Chapter 9. The Children. Little Girls with Glowing Smiles. By Ray Lindsey. Little girls, with glowing smiles, a freckle here and there. Makes everything for me worthwhile, assuages all my care. Some want gifts at Christmas time of expense for others to see. But a kiss from Jenny and a hug from Beck is quite enough for me. As each one perches on my knee, I see gifts from above. And feel life's woes and bitterness, concede the fight to love. From life's sweet joys to tragedy, and once more back again. They share with me each circumstance, as flowers share the rain. There's words to praise the works of men, their natures to appease. But dare you not, O gifted scribe, to describe my love for these. As pure as water from the rock, untainted as the rain. Nor depth nor height, nor wide expanse, could e'er their love contain. Becky. By Ray Lindsey. Rebecca is a charming lass, with cunningness to spare. Her appetite is quite all right, I can assure you there. Earth's riches for her holds no charms, the bright lights can't allure. For her, the light that shines so bright, is the icebox light for sure. Jenny. By Ray Lindsey. There ain't no ships in the desert. No cactus in the sea. No singing down in Hades, like Nashville, Tennessee. No lonesome ain't in heaven. No happiness in hell. There ain't no fish that's thirsty, these things we know quite well. No skinny ain't on toady fields, no pretty ain't on diller. If she was mine, there'd be no choice, but take her out and kill her. No Eskimos on Sahara, at least there sure ain't many, and there ain't no gal, anywhere, like ours that we call Jenny. One time Sandy caught a cold and had to stay home from school. When she was well and ready to return to school, she asked Ray to write the required excuse for her absence. This is what he wrote. Sandy's Cold by Ray Lindsey. There'll be an absent one today, when teacher calls the roll. I'll be at home, trying to stop this dribblin' blubberin' cold. My ma makes good potato pie, and meatballs and spaghetti. But I wouldn't know the difference now, if she served me confetti. This menace oft called common has thrown me in reverse. My feet are smellin' nowadays, my nose is runnin' worse. They all sat back to watch the show, relaxed in bland repose. While I stare in a cuspidor, beneath my drippin' nose. I'll tell you most assuredly, though you may not believe. That stuff that's white and shiny, ain't starch upon my sleeve. I don't care much for riches now, and not too much for clothes. I'll miss the limelight anyhow, with this red bulbous nose. Sandy was too embarrassed to take the poem to school, so Catherine had to write another excuse. Nita. By Ray Lindsey. Today is just like all the others, to most folk in every clime. But there's some that know the reason, it's a special day of mine. November 1943, somewhere round the second day, the Seraph Band unlocked the gates of boundless joy that came our way. And there was one who held a lamp, love's glowing incandescent flame, that long has lighted up our way. Oh yes, Lenita was its name. She made me with the giant's walk, a source of matchless wealth was she. She was the only song I knew, but that was song enough for me. And the three that were to follow were rewardings quite enough. Dimmed my view of gold that cankers, they were diamonds in the rough. Now the call is coming clearer, echoes from that distant shore. These will all be yours forever, jewels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chapter 10. The Consummate Salesman. Ray made contact with several very large shoe manufacturers and wholesale dealers, and his business began to grow quickly. He spent many long hours on the highways and country roads. But every few months, the craving for alcohol would drive him back to the bottle, and he would wind up drunk in some lonely motel room, all alone. Sometimes he'd be gone for a week or two, while Catherine stayed at home praying for his safe return, and for his deliverance. He would be so ashamed and remorseful when he got home. Those times usually resulted in a big setback financially, but Ray always knew how to make money. Folks would say he could sell a snowball to an Eskimo. He was in St. Louis, Missouri on a buying trip one night, when he began to feel down and depressed. He wanted to go to church. He spotted a little mission church on a back street and slipped in. Trying to be unnoticed, he sat on the back row. The minister was a small man, about 80 years old. When he finished with his preliminaries, the old minister pointed his long finger at Ray and said, "You, there in the back. Stand up." Of course Ray stood up nervously. The old man said, "You think you came to St. Louis to buy merchandise. But that's not why you're here at all. You came to hear what I've got to say to you." He said, "I saw you as a little boy sitting under an old oak tree, writing letters in the sand with a stick. And the Lord said, 'You are a scribe. And nothing you do will ever amount to a hill of beans until you fulfill that call.'" Ray would recall the old prophet's words many times throughout his life. The Pup and the Toads. By Ray Lindsey. Tonight I sit in a wayside inn, some 1,000 miles away. Time races back toward a place where a small boy used to play. I see him as he looks into the still pools of a stream, reflecting scattered freckles, and a little boy's secret dream. I see him 'neath his favorite oak with all his earthly wear. A puppy and 2 toad frogs, yes, he instructs them there. I hear him say, "Now see here sport, these children you must keep. And stop their croaking 'cause I feel just like I wanna sleep." He shades his face with an old straw hat, with his head on the lap of earth, and slips away into slumberland, where a little boy's dreams give birth. His dreams he never would divulge, kept them vaulted safe away. Though 50 more odd years have passed, the dream comes back most every day. At first you see a peaceful smile, but then it fades away, replaced by pain on an anguished brow, and he awakes to say, "Now hear ye this, ye pup and toads, I ain't gonna sleep no more. Each time I sleep this dream comes back, the same one, o'er and o'er. I see this shepherd, see the sheep, I counted 99. And if this dream would end right there, then dreaming would be fine. But then I hear this faint small cry, upon the mountain cold. Sounds like the cry of a tiny lamb, that strayed away from the fold. There's a raging storm, a howling wind, a cold and driving rain. But the shepherd won't hear the SOS please, help me home again. For he's at ease in the valley below, fleecing the 99. Caring not for the one that's caught in thorn and tangling vine. So don't you see, said the little boy to the pup and the 2 small toads, I'm sick of this shepherd, sick of this dream, tired of the heavy load. So I'm gonna shake this awful dream, like it had never begun. When I get big, if I have to go to the land of the rising sun. The toads were sad, but the little pup said, "You've not a thing to fear. Look closer, and you'll see a small eye, about to shed a tear. I've seen our little friend many times, when he would slip away. And talk to some man up in the sky. And cry about all day. Now the dial of life goes round but once," he told his little team. "So I'll sow my seed where pleasure reigns, till I'm free of this dream." But the boy matured, and so did the dream, and grew until the day when the cry of the lamb on the mount became the groans of trampled men. The old hound dog that once was a pup, had now grown feeble and old. And his lifelong friend was leaving him now. He didn't have to be told. He waited alone by the picket gate, for he knew the time was nigh, when his master would come, and pat his head, and bid him forever goodbye. Said the hound, "If you were still a small boy, and I, still your little pup, I wouldn't be waiting, here at this gate, to give my master up." Then the master sensed unspoken words the old hound could not keep. "Forget me soon, but never forget the cry of the little lost sheep." Chapter 11. Coming Home. In the late 1950s, big changes were taking place. 2 high schools in Little Rock were integrated, Elvis Presley emerged as the king of rock and roll, the Barbie doll was introduced, and Ray moved his family to St. Louis, on what turned out to be a failed business venture. It was a bad move, but God still had a plan for the Lindseys. It was there that 17-year-old Lenita met and married the love of her life, 20-year-old Earl Wells. When the family moved back to Hot Springs, about a year later, Earl and Lenita followed them, and Earl went to work for Ray. Earl was ambitious. He worked hard learning the business, and became an important part of it, as well as a very much loved family member. When Ray wrote this next song, everyone said it could be a country hit. But like all the others, it was set aside and never published. The Bridge to Memphis Town. By Ray Lindsey. Back in the year of 33, we were as poor could be, we worked the gumbo fields of Arkansas. My Annabelle and I had wed, we worked from morn till night for bread, she was the prettiest thing you ever saw. They'd come from miles and miles around, to hear her sing when the sun went down, the nightingale would hush to hear her tune. She'd sing about her love for me, that life was filled with ecstasy, beneath that big ol' yellow, delta moon. But times grew tougher, day by day, and I'd complain, and she'd just pray. She said she'd make life sweet enough for me. Her pleas were all to no avail, she stood and watched me set a sail, the very thing she clutched so desperately. Then one day Annabelle agreed, to work in town, to meet the need, I'd sell the place when a buyer could be found. With lovely swimming hazel eyes, lips only tried to say goodbye, she drove across that bridge, to Memphis town. The very hour she was gone, and I was left out there alone, remembrance woke, and turned the past to pain. And everything that I could see, all seemed to mock and scoff at me, and say, "You fool, she'll not be back again." The house became a worthless drone, an empty shell, the pearl had gone, the smiling things all turned on me to frown. They told me that my madman's sword had pierced the heart they all adored, and drove her cross that bridge, to Memphis town. The mailman shakes his head each day, and murmurs as he pulls away, he says I drove the sunshine from their land. He said she stopped to pray to God, while tears fell on beloved sod, that he would keep the valley in his hand. And dear Lord pardon, now and then, because they are but struggling men, to my account write all their charges down. And when I'm gone, don't take away my memories of sweet yesterday, when I have crossed that bridge, to Memphis town. She stopped this side the mighty span, and raised 2 pretty harm-free hands, and said, "Lord, I commit them all to you. The choice is not mine own I've made, I'd stay and pick the scanty blade, before I'd bid my lovely land adieu." She closed her eyes but still could see her cottage far across the lea, and saw her loved ones, tilling delta ground. Against her spotless heart and pride, to plunge beneath old Muddy's tide, she drove a never return, to Memphis town. In 1961, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was inaugurated the 35th President of the United States. The American Civil Rights Movement was underway, and Alan Shepard became the first American in space, aboard the Mercury Redstone 3. Family life was happy. Earl and Nita had bought a house right next door. Jenny and Becky were in elementary school, and Sandy was in high school, in the same class with the future President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Sandy had fallen in love with a tall, dark and handsome guy, named Art Parker. They married in 1962. Art joined the Army, and they moved to Chicago, where he was stationed. The Lindseys were one of the few families in their neighborhood who owned a television set. So when President Kennedy was assassinated, on November 22, 1963, friends and neighbors gathered at the Lindsey home to watch the sad news coverage. The following February, there was a crowd around their TV again. This time it was kids. Jenny and Becky's friends had come to watch the first appearance of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. On June 30, 1964, Lenita gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, named Michael Jeffrey Wells. Everyone in the family was excited and so proud. You'd have thought he was the only baby in the world. After all, he was the first child, the first grandchild and the first nephew. By 1965, Ray had opened a large retail shoe store, and named it the Archie House. It was a great success. He had a section in the back of the store for a warehouse, and shop where he hired men to operate the big machines that repaired and shined the shoes. Art and Sandy moved back to Hot Springs when Art got out of the Army that year, and he also came to work for Ray. On October 3, Sandy had a darling baby boy, which they named James Mitchell Parker. The business was doing great. All three families bought new homes. The next year, Melissa Renee Wells was born, and the year after that, Arthur Curtis Parker Jr. came along. In 1970, Angela Michelle completed the Wells family. Jenny and Becky were best friends. They both married in 1970. Their husbands were best friends as well. Jenny became Mrs. Randy Humphreys, and Becky became Mrs. Steve Brooks. The four of them hung out together, all the time. In 1971, Jenny gave birth to a precious little boy they named Ty Shane Humphreys. All the grandchildren called Ray, Dee Dee, and Catherine was called Mimi. Ray adored all his grandchildren, which inspired him to write a poem about them, entitled, Your Hands Will Just Fit Mine. Your Hands Will Just Fit Mine. By Ray Lindsey. Dear Michael, child of promise, destined to be strong. Born to serve a purpose great, that I've known all along. For God gave me a call one day, I never seemed to do. So you see, Mike, when I'm gone, the mantle falls on you. But just a day or so ago, as in a holy rain, our loving Savior came and said, You're recommissioned once again. So from this day, dear Mike, and on, the call we can't repine. And should the way get hard or lone, your hand will just fit mine. Dear Mitch, no granddad ever had a grandson quite like you. One who in every circumstance, you love right through and through. And if at any time you think, you're in the minor grace, just cool it, man, with Dee Dee, there is no second place. You too are Dee Dee's soldier. No better could I find. When no one else is there to pull, your hand will just fit mine. Love mommy, dad, and brother. And precious Mimi too. For you've the kind of love they need, Mitch, I trust in you. Now Mitch, when trouble comes about, let's put it on the line. If you can't see me, I'm still there, just put your hand in mine. Dear Missy, should I ever write a book of poem or prose about the dearest things on earth, you'd sure be one of those. You won me from the very start, you have me till this day. I'll call your name to God each night, whene'er I kneel to pray. So darling, when you're lonely, don't ever fret or pine. Just call Dee Dee and I'll be there, I'd love your hand in mine. Now here comes Kurt the rascal, he'll steal your very heart, while grabbing you by your prize shirt, and tearing it apart. He never buffets at a swat, does not quit at repels. He just keeps right on climbing, looking for something else. When they start giving Kurt's away, I'll be the first in line. Then when the cookie jar's too high, I'll put his hand in mine. Mirror, mirror, here comes Angel, I'll not ask you on the wall. For I know without the asking, she's the cutest of them all. Though I failed once, Angel darling, try me just once more. In the future, whisper Dee Dee, I'll be standing at your door. Tell your mommy that I love her, Mike and Daddy, Missy too. Now your hand's in mine forever, Angel darling, I love you. Now make room folks, for here comes one that makes me stand so tall. That cunning smile he gives would make me climb a sabred wall. Just like his darling mother, who gently strums the chord. He'll win a verbose battle, without a whispered word. So here's my hand, old rooster, you're welcome to our plain. You've made life so much fuller, so thanks again, Ty Shane. So Michael, Mitchell, Missy, Kurt, little angel, Ty Shane too. No one stands out as king or queen, I love each one of you. And as your shadows lengthen, my frame will stoop each day. The bow bends fast toward the time, 'twill go the other way. Life's upward climb is fraught with pain, bad omens often frown. But I'll push hard as you go up, you'll lead me gently down. But should your way be blocked ahead, strong tentacles entwine. Hold up your hands for I'll be there, your hands will just fit mine. So be of steel-born courage, when comes the surging tide. For mommy, dad and me will stand close to your side. No greater love than mommy's, no greater pal than dad. No sweeter Mimi on this earth, a grandchild ever had. You'll call their name and they'll be there, with faithfulness and grace. But call my name, I'll be there too, though not seen any place. So now this solemn charge I leave, be watchful toward them all. But most of all, each other, for someone's sure to fall. And this one thing remember, the one you helped today will take your hand tomorrow, when you can't make your way. Now Dee Dee is so proud of you, I think you're truly fine. Until the day my hand fits yours, your hands will just fit mine. The next year Jenny had another beautiful baby boy named J. Kyle Humphreys. They called him Jake. Later that year Sandy had a little girl they named Amy Kathleen Parker. Grandkids. By Ray Lindsey. The guys all brag about grandkids, in places where I go. And I say, looky here you jerks, my kids you oughta know. Now there's 5 gents in my lineup, they're angels every whit. The reason you can't tell it is, their halos just don't fit. There's weighty words about Mike and Mitch, and Kurt and old Ty Shane. Someday they'll share a rightful place, in some kinda hall of fame. And then there's one, called Rollickin' Jake, oh Lord who was to blame? Though this little angel came with horns, that's an angel, just the same. Pure havoc follows in his wake, he's Bedlam's closest friend. When he appears, your peace bails out, and pandemonium's in. But this old boy's endowed, with a very special art. Of picking out the fastest road, that leads straight to your heart. Then when the battle's over, the last shot has been fired. And none of us can budge a peg, we're all just too dog-tired. Then scan the waves and you will see, across yon lashing foam, old Rollickin' Jake, at the helm of the ship, steering us all back home. Now I should like to talk about some angels genuine. They came from Seraph's choicest squad, and best of all they're mine. As I make my daily orbits, seeking refuge from my plight. It is these that take distresses, tempers them with pure delight. Now here's this Missy, she's a foretaste, of the sweet by and by. When she passes, little gents bellow, holy cats oh me oh my. Then I've got this angel, I am so proud, she's my kin. The only one from Gabriel's chorus, that says damn it now and then. Don't stop me now, for there's another, that just came to us of late. Takes me from a sea of troubles, puts me in a new estate. Empty words cannot do justice, to the sunshine in her smile. And for that innocent reflection, I would walk a country mile. Guess you know by now it's Amy, that I'm trying to portray. Heaven's powers loaned her to us, that's what I'm trying to say. So Amy darling, we're not asking that you join our vicious plot. For we're guilty when we see you, of the million things you're not. When Amy was about 5 years old, she would sing in church, where her daddy Art was the pastor. She was so adorable when she stood and sang this song, which Ray had written for her, to sing for the Christmas holidays. Christmas Every Day. By Ray Lindsey. There's a day that's coming pretty soon, it's even at the door. When tinsel will be hanging, over toys that's on the floor. And goodies will be everywhere, but this is why we sing. Because it is the birthday of our Savior Lord and King. Oh, I'm so glad I know him, for he's so good to me. Jingle bells ring in my heart, while I sing merrily. I'm thankful for our country, but I'm not here to stay. I'm going to a place, where it is Christmas every day. We'll all go down to the lollipop tree, and picnic in its shade. Then we'll all ride the big lifeboat, down the river of lemonade. We'll throw a kiss at Mom and Dad, as we go by the fountain. With Jesus, on our way to climb up the big rock candy mountain. Chapter 12. The Climb. The Arky house was a great source of pride for Ray. He had worked hard to build it, and felt he had accomplished a big goal. He made a small witty sign, that he placed in the window, close to the door. It said, "Our success is defeat." He hired a secretary, whom he trusted completely, to do his bookkeeping. She became like one of the family. In fact, she was always included at family gatherings. Catherine loved her like a sister. Ray gave her the authority to write checks for paying bills, taxes, etc. Everything was going great, until the IRS came knocking, for unpaid taxes. Ray and Catherine were shocked. They thought it was a mistake, until they discovered that the secretary had not paid the taxes, as was reflected on the books. In fact, she had embezzled thousands of dollars from them. They were deeply hurt by her betrayal. Of course she cried, and begged for their forgiveness, promising to pay them back, so Ray and Catherine didn't prosecute her. She never paid them back. This led to a financial crisis for Ray, and he was forced to sell the Arky house. Earl and Lenita bought it, and later expanded it. It became a multi-million-dollar success. Although Ray was glad that the Arky house was still in the family, he was saddened by the personal loss of it. The little sign, which he had placed in the window, had been quite prophetic. The Arky house had been his success, but now his defeat. Ray continued his wholesale business, but periodically, he would fall into despair, and seek relief in the bottle. The binges usually occurred about every 8 months, but in between them, he continued to write. God never took the gift from him. When a song, or a poem, started coming to his mind, he would grab the first thing he could find to write on. Sometimes it was on the back of an envelope of mail, or just some scrap of paper. Sometimes it was on a cardboard box, that he packed shoes in to sell. Once, he wrote a poem to Catherine on toilet paper. This book contains only a portion of his many writings. His love for God was reflected in his songs. Not Guilty. By Ray Lindsey. They brought in the prisoner, to the magistrate's bar, stripped of all but the shackles he wore. He knew he was guilty, of the things that they charged, he did them all, and so many more. He stood there alone with no one to defend, and just humbly, bowed down his head. When a gentle one rose, and said, "I'm his defense, and I've come here to stand in his stead. He's not guilty, for I took the blame. This case has been tried long before. Here's the nail prints to prove that the debt has been paid, and you can't try this case anymore. Here's the thorn marks they made, when they read out my charge, when they thought they had my back to the wall. So take off the shackles, and let him go free. He's not guilty at all." They brought the poor maiden to Jesus that day, to a lonely place just out of town. Asking, "Sir, should we stone her? She's guilty we know," but he just stooped down and wrote on the ground. She said, "Lord, I'm so guilty, but I want to be clean, just one touch, and my sins will be gone." Then he raised up and said, "He that never has sinned, let the sinless one cast the first stone." She's not guilty, her sins are all gone. There's a flame in her heart now to stay. Though her sins were as scarlet, they're whiter than snow, her transgressions are all purged away. And I tore up the record that blighted her past, the moment I heard her heart's call. Since she came to the fount, without money or price, she's not guilty at all. She's not guilty, for I took the blame. This case has been tried long before. Here's the nail prints to prove that the debt has been paid, and you can't try this case anymore. Here's the thorn marks they made, when they read out my charge, when they thought they had my back to the wall. So take off the shackles, and let her go free. She's not guilty at all. Don't Let Go of My Hand. By Ray Lindsey. Walking in the wastelands, where I thought I'd find a thrill. Far away from his presence, and the center of his will. But I found only sadness, in that strange and distant land. Then I cried, "Don't let go of my hand. Don't let go if I wander, from the straight and narrow way. That's the only peace I find, Lord, and it's there I need to stay. For the crooked ways confuse me, in the mire I cannot stand. So I cry, don't let go of my hand. Don't let go in the darkness, when the light I cannot see. For I'm bound for the pitfalls, when my eyes are not on thee. You're a million miles away, Lord, if it's only just a span. So I cry, don't let go of my hand. Oh, how vacant and how lonely, for the one who dared to roam, separated from his Father, and the comforts of his home. There's a longing within, that no human heart can stand. So I cry, don't let go of my hand. Don't let go in the tempest, when the storm is on life's sea. When the stars have ceased to shine, Lord, and the waves all cover me. Mid the billows and the darkness, there's no sight of home or land. Then I cry, don't let go of my hand. The Day of Redemption. By Ray Lindsey. There's a feeling I get, when I look toward the west, in the evening, when shadows stretch long, that the time is so near, when our Lord shall appear, with the heavens host singing that song. There'll be father and mother, and friends of the past, and the dear ones we all used to know. And they're waiting for Gabriel to sound the long blast, for they know that the trump will soon blow. It's the song of redemption, oh sing children sing, let your voices be heard, loud and clear. The days of your conflict and sorrows are past, look up, your redemption is here. I almost can see all my friends and my loved ones, he'll bring with him to greet me, I know. The millions are shouting, as he calls for Gabriel, for they know that the trump will soon blow. I'm so anxious to tell them, how vacant and lonely, it's been since they ceased to be near. Then I hear them replying, we'll soon be together, for the day of redemption is here. I am so thrilled at the thought, I'll see father and mother, oh the joy is too great to be told. But then I'm reminded, of all the dear loved ones, who have not made it into the fold. Then I cry, Jesus, please save them today, Lord, for they all are so precious and dear. And then we'll all sing the great song of redemption, hallelujah, that day's almost here. There are so many things, I would like to talk over, with my friends of the past yesterday. With the ones who would call out my name to the Savior, each time they would kneel down to pray. But the first 1,000 years, I'd just like to sit lowly, near the one who has loved me so long. And thank him because, I can join the great throng, in this wonderful, wonderful song. Where is Nehemiah? By Ray Lindsey. They have broken my gates, and burned them with fire. When for one fleeting moment, I was trapped in desire to seek a strange city, filled with death cold and chill. Far away from Jerusalem, on Mount Zion's hill. Outside with the rebels, who took a retreat. Away from his presence, and his fellowship sweet. Now it's from a great distance, I'm sending this call. Oh, send Nehemiah, help me rebuild the wall. Oh, where is Nehemiah? Someone take him my call. My defenses are gone, and they've broken my wall. And Satan delights, that he caused it to fall. So call Nehemiah, help me rebuild my wall. How I long to return to the city of grace, where aliens and strangers have taken my place. My mansion's in sight, of the palace and throne, where I talk to the king, when I feel so alone. They have ravaged my gardens, that were beauty to see. They have pillaged the mansion, my king gave to me. Now it's from a great distance, I'm sending my call. Oh, call Nehemiah, help me rebuild the wall. Oh, look, I see a carpenter, a strong gentle man. He must have known labor, for there's scars in his hands. He said I've wanted to help, since I've heard of its fall. I am your Nehemiah, we will rebuild the wall. If you long for your portion, of the city you love, whose builder was Jesus, sent down from above. The one who has called you, and set you apart. He will strengthen your hands, and he'll strengthen your heart. You know he was a carpenter, and he waits at the wall. To mend that's broken, and crushed from its fall. He patiently waits, for your heart's faintest call. He is your Nehemiah. He will rebuild your wall. Manifested Sons. By Ray Lindsey. Co-written with Jenny Olson. Let me tell you what my Jesus has done. He told me, child, you're my chosen one. I had you in mind when the suffering was done. Upon the blood-stained tree. Well, he gave his life up on that tree. That's the price he paid for you and me. That one day we could all be free, and live eternally. He said, my Father, not my will, I'm only here to pay the bill. That sin has made that they may fill, a place this cross has won. He said, now child, if you'll confess, and trust in me to do the rest, you'll live forever in the land of the blessed, with the manifested sons. Now the story's old, but it's just as true. Calvary was made by me and you. We held the hands that the nails went through. But he rent the veil in two. Now he's sitting by the Father on the right-hand side, making intercession for his allied. Reminding him of why he died, for souls like me and you. He said, now Father, I condemn them not. They may have sinned, but I forgot. In the bottom of the sea I buried the lot, so charge them all to me. So take me down from this old tree, or let the ones I love go free. Through blood, their sins you cannot see. So they belong to me. Becky and Steve decided after 5 years to start their family. The first of 3 little girls was Stacy Day, born in 1976, followed by Mandy Gay in 1978. Then Christy Kay came in 1979. Chapter 13. The Chance Meeting. Ray and Catherine were big fans of the PTL television show, and faithful members of PTL International. Ray was particularly drawn to Henry Harrison, who was the sidekick of Jim Bakker, on the TV show. In 1978, they decided to take their vacation there at Heritage Village, and attend the shows. The place was huge, with row after row of buildings. They had been there several days, and learned that in order to get good seats, and close parking, you had to arrive very early in the morning. One morning they arrived extra early, and were sitting in their car in the gigantic parking lot, when a lady pulled in beside them. She was having a problem with her car, so Ray got out, and fixed it for her. As they talked, she told him that she worked there, so he asked her if she knew how he could get in, to meet Henry Harrison. She smiled, and said, come with me. I'm his wife, and I'll take you right to him. Henry was not only the co-host of the TV show, but also the DJ of the radio program, PTL Nightwatch International. Susan Harrison took Ray and Catherine directly to the studio, where Henry had just begun the broadcast. While sitting in the waiting room, Ray gave Susan a copy of his poem, Where Two Ways Met. She was so impressed that she asked Henry to share it with their listeners on the radio. She said that it sounded so much like Henry's personal life. So in his very professional voice, and using background sound effects, Henry Harrison read Ray's poem over the radio. Where Two Ways Met. By Ray Lindsey. I stood one day, where two ways met, mid-life's mad aimless whirl. A misfit in the sheepfold, a misfit in the world. While lost in thought amid the throngs, my soul burst forth in tears. As I relived the bitter past, of sad and wasted years. I saw again the nail-scarred hand, that beckoned me one day. To leave the crowd and follow him, along the blood-bought way. 'Twas not enough, alone to say, the look, the passion plea. Would haunt me through the coming years, while wandering aimlessly. I wondered if I'd ever know, why Satan won the fight. And led me through the ruthless woes, of sin's dark dismal night. Torn from the ones I cherished, loved, for long ensuing years. Left scars on hearts, no eye could see, and pillows coursed by tears. I saw a faithful loving wife, impoverished, lonely, sad. I seemed to hear the tiny pleas, Lord, give us back our dad. What love, they shared my bitter cup, that sin filled to the brim. Their prayers disturbed night's stillest hour, that I'd return to him. They knew that I deferred the day, to walk in that blessed name. That I might heap to my reserve, a fortune and some fame. But year by year they sadly watched, my purpose in retreat. and saw me bid a long farewell, to all but sad defeat. Contrast these two, the zealot went out, without having ever been sent. The unyielding one, soul bursting with grief, was called, but yet never went. Then on and on through anguished years, each day brought more regret. That I chose not the priceless call, back there, where two ways met. Then more and more I realized, the joy that I had sold could not be bought with earthly fare, if I owned all the gold. I'd set adrift the wealth, the fame, to glimpse the silhouette of him who came to call for me, back there, where two ways met. In vain I sought among the saints, for one who'd understand, and with compassion take me back, to him with nail-scarred hand. Then heavy heart, defeat, remorse, each time would drive me back. To buy the flask, to drown the pain, with those across the track. To hear them talk, was but to find, their story much the same. They once had known the joy within, and walked in Jesus' name. But while just lambs within the fold, some shepherd failed each one to teach them that the victory's kept, the same way that it's won. With prayerless life the foe steals through, the strongest fortress mind. Then with a subjugating blow, subdues the languid kind. The fateful pen of circumstance, inscribes and signs their doom. Their circles shrink from boundless fields, to a bar, a darkened room. They toil to gain the silver piece, that fills the tender's till. As though they love the cruel chains, that broke and bound their will. Satan stole their cup of joy, their song, their mirthful laugh. On faces blank as gravestones, he writes their epitaph. Life now to them, is but a gap, between a rueful birth. Till demons from the chasm deep, shall usher them from earth. Their sorrows deepen with the dusk, and linger on till dawn. Their haunting cries disturb the night, travailing for their own. A black and cold horizon, my bits of blue sky gone. Pushing through the crowded ways, yet ever so alone. The ones who'd proudly called me friend, in the better days I'd known, would leave a hurt as they passed by, known but to him alone. In darkened room, that night I cried, Lord, I can stand no more. And wept till interrupted, by a knock upon my door. I rose to bid him enter, and found with no regret the gentle, loving thorn-crowned one, again, where two ways met. No words to paint the beauty of this transport of delight. 10,000 years I'd gladly toil, for one more equal sight. The pain of all the wandering years, wrought by my stubborn will, fled as he raised the nail-scarred hand, and whispered, Peace, be still. Fear not, said he, I've heard your cries, I've shared your load of care. 'Twas with a price I bought thee, child, your secrets are laid bare. For I alone could know your pain, when darkness closed thee in. When deep remorse would take its stand, to recompense thy sin. But from this hour I send thee forth, to those across the track. They too are mine, you know the way, now child you bring them back. Tell them of love, that knows no bounds, of one who bore their shame. Of how I wore the crown of thorns, that they might wear my name. From burnished pews they'll never hear, the story, old but true. 'Tis but from those, plucked from the fire. The ones that's been there too. Through tears I saw the flames of those, their doom, the fire beyond. But lo appeared the cross between, the work that love had done. In golden approbation, for the blessed work he'd begun. My soul longed for 10,000 tongues, to praise this matchless one. From all the spoils of life and fame, I'd beat a fast retreat. For just a place of sweet recluse, to sit low at his feet. Beyond the fondest hopes of men, who said 'twill never be. Beyond a mother's dreams and prayers, my Lord has taken me. A vessel stained and broken, with not a slight appeal. Now radiates a work of love, wrought on the potter's wheel. I would not trade an hour's walk, with this meek Nazarene. For earth's vain recognition, and all men's high esteem. For in that hour he called my name, this blessed one from above. I saw the gall of bitterness, concede the fight to love. No more I see the damning flask, the stench of rum is gone. But this one solemn charge remains, from here, you carry on. I looked once more, to see my Lord, from where those two ways met. I saw him not, but up ahead, stood Calvary's silhouette. Old Salty by Ray Lindsey. A burly old seaman walked down to the sea, the wind in his misty grey hair. But the good harbour-master gently stopped him and said, "Son, today, you shouldn't go out there. There's a storm that is brewing, as fierce as they come, that your craft is too sea-worn to bear. I've known you, and loved you, for so many years, and I'd sure hate to lose you out there." But the seaman replied, "I need no advice, I've sailed it again and again. I know every inch of the briny deep, from Singapore to Maine. They call me Old Salty, the man of the brine, and they all ask me about the sea. So it should be me that's telling you, instead of you telling me." The master then knew it was of no use that he should continue his plea, and sadly watched as the old craft sailed out to a merciless sea. He told his first mate to just go down below, till midnight, I'll stay at the helm. I'll steer around this squall that they fear, Old Salty won't be overwhelmed. But just before dusk, he narrowed his eyes, for the first time he feared for his life. For out of the watery wastes ahead rose a blackness you could cut with a knife. As long as he'd ridden the high rolling seas, and ploughed through the surf and the foam. For the first time he knew he should have obeyed the good harbour-master back home. No craft could survive a tempest like this, no wind like this ever did blow. The billows rose higher than the old craft could take, so it sank to the fathoms below. Only a small piece of driftwood remained for Salty to hold to for life. Then he looked up and cried, "Harbour-master, forgive and help in this hour of strife." And then the wind ceased and the sea became calm, no more was the lashing foam. And far in the distance the old seaman saw the good harbour lights of home. So, if you're out there on the high rolling seas, please carefully scan the foam. You might see an Old Salty on some driftwood out there, trying to make it back home.